Hello. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this seminar on circular thinking here at Doga. We're so pleased that so many of you could come this morning. We would like to make or give a thank to all the people contributing to this. It's Pure Consulting, it's Biomimicry Norway, and it's eggs. When it comes to circular economy and circular thinking, all products and services make an environmental impact. And that's from cradle to cradle. And it comes to sourcing of materials, it comes to what kind of materials you pick, it comes to the manufacturing of products and services, it comes to the recycling of products, it comes to packaging and to logistics. And more than 80% of the environmental impact is decided in the early phase, which means it's in the phase where the designers are in. Which means that the designers have a huge impact on how the product and service is going to be. They have a huge responsibility, but at the same time, it's a huge possibility to make a change. And the good thing is, if you look at circular economy model, if you make a really long-lasting product, I think all of you have one item at home which you got from your grandparents. It could be like 100 years old or 150 years old. It could be a chair, it could be anything. And that's the inner circle. It's one circle, you make a product that lasts for a long time. And you don't have to fix it, you don't need to recycle it, you just make it for a long life, which is the easy way. Of course, a lot of products are not meant to last for a long time, like packaging. And then you have to consider the other circles as well. But it makes it much complicated. So actually, rule number one is to make really good products that last for a long time. Of course, you have to consider the sourcing and materials and all this, but that's the key issue. But how will you position yourself if you're in the business or you're a designer for future risks and opportunities? There are certain methods that you could use to make a better plan for how you introduce a product or a service. And that's what we're going to hear about today through future thinking and circular thinking. We have a tight program today, and I got a voice which is kaput, so I'm going to make this quite short. We're going to start here by talking about circular thinking from Pure Consulting. We're going to talk about future thinking with Paul from Eggs Design. And then we're going to look at how these two approaches can make certain touch points and discuss how they work together. After that, we're going to go up on mezzanine and have some workshop on the same topics. So it's important that when we finish here that you're quite quick on going up for the workshop. I think just one curiosity from Doga. This is not something new. In the 70s, it was a shortage of oil due to the oil crisis, and people had to rethink how they use the resources. So these are actually the criteria for getting the award for good design in 1975. And I think a lot of us can agree that it looks quite familiar what they're talking about. So this has been done before, and we can do it again. Then I will give the word to Kia Klaunes at Pure Consulting.
De styrer. Okay. So my mic is on. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's so great that so many choose to spend their morning with us here in Oslo and Doga. So this is quite an experiment, or do you think a little bit about that? Because we want to introduce to you two powerful tools, two powerful approaches that we think is relevant for staging your company for the future, and very exciting for you as a designer to step into. So we're trying to combine that today, and maybe in the future we could invite you back here and have a much longer session where you actually could dig more into the tools. Knut said that we're going to have a workshops afterwards. There are not, I think, about 20 people who signed up for the workshop, and it's full for now. So we won't have any available spaces, but be free, come back to us and tell us if you want to attend the workshop later on. So I'm going to cover the circular thinking part, and Paul will add on that by taking us into the future by introducing their tools on future thinking. So I represent a small field, actually, even though I think it's the most important field at the moment, working with sustainability. We are a consultancy that help companies integrate sustainable issues into the core of their business, so it both strengthens their brand and also fit them for the future, because we think that's one of the key issues, and that's also why we work a lot with circular economy, helping companies come from a linear approach to a more circular approach when it guards the strategy and also the products. So I'm not going to introduce the model. Knut already introduced what circular economy about, but I want you to imagine that we are, every time we step into a new strategy process or go into an assignment with a client, we can choose. So now we are right here. We are in the middle of the linear economy, and we can choose to stay there or go backward, or we can take a step into the future by creating more circular business model. So what would that world or that new circular economy look like? You can imagine a world without waste, where products are designed to be used again and again, spending a minimum of energy, and maybe even be renewable. And where services are shaped to regenerate waste and new ways of delivering value. There's a lot of possibilities in circular thinking, and there's a lot of possibilities on how you actually could tap into the future and get some competitive advantages. So this seminar will give you a small blik about that. When I talk about circular economy, and I know this has been a topic at DOGA many times before, and it's been approached since the 70s, and that's also a way of saying that this covers a lot of approaches. There's a lot of agencies, there's a lot of NGOs, starting with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who make models, who lay methods, and a lot of things that actually help you tap into the circular economy. In one way, this could also make this area very confusing, because how should we move from a linear economy to a circular economy? And that's why there is a small agency in the Netherlands who actually took the work. They compared all those 20 approaches, NGOs, agencies, academias, government, consultancies, with different approaches into one common language. They mapped the various terms and definitions, and they ended up with 7 key elements for circular economy and circular thinking. So this is a majority of what is actually the emerge or the link between all of those thinking and all of those theories. They put it into 7 key elements. And I like those elements because that gives you an opportunity to start circular thinking. And that is what I'm going to give you an example of how you actually could use them together with the tool Circulab that we will work on later on this morning. So we work with strategies. We work with companies that are moving into the future and help them future fit their future work. But what we actually see often is that it's not that easy activating a circular mindset, because maybe you have a little knowledge about what it is and what it could be for our business. Many companies have little experience in actually testing out different concepts. And sometimes they're a bit negative to it because they know that it will challenge their current business model, and that everything that is challenging and difficult, we have, a way of pushing backwards. So you could use those elements to actually step into the circular economy. So imagine, this is just an example, a furniture company. Maybe some of you recognize it. I have not worked with them, so this is completely made up, just to know that. But if you say a furniture company, they could use those 7 elements to actually find out where are we now. So making sense of the circular economy by mapping their current work up against those 7 areas. And what they found out was that even though they have never put circular economy into a strategic approach, they saw they already had a lot of action going on. They have small initiatives that have been there for years because of regulations, because of good business sense, and so on. So that is one way of stepping into the circular approach, actually starting up mapping what do we already do and where can we move forward. This company thought that, okay, so good, we're already there. But on the other hand, they saw we have a lot of other risk. We know there's going to be a lot more regulations. We have seen that there are competitors pushing us because now you can rent your furniture, now you can build your own furniture. So considering all those external drivers, they took those and thought that maybe we should actually take a step further and look into the areas or elements that we not have focused on yet. So that is one way of thinking more strategic of how you actually can use those 7 elements in stepping into circular economy. What do we actually do now, and where do we actually have to step up in order to stay in business and at the same time earn money and work circular? So here it could be about collaborating more by creating value. And maybe you need to look at the value chain and the partners in your value chain, and maybe you need to be searching for new partners. This could also be about that maybe you already have some take-back solutions for your product, but on the other hand, you see that you actually have to disrupt your current model because it's not going to function in a 10, 15 years approach. And you need to see maybe the digital technology and platforms and the sharing economy as a new opportunity to keep your customers or find out new solutions. So a way of actually putting those 4 or 3 elements into practice is by playing the CircleLab game. And that is what we're going to do afterwards. So CircleLab is actually a tool that would help you get a little more creativity, awareness of what circular economy is, and what opportunities is lying in the circular economy for our business. It's a proof of concept, or a starting to proof of concept, where you actually, by creating some ideas, can move in theory into the circular economy and see how would our business model look like when we change our value creation, if we change the channels, if we change one material in our current product. So this company thought that this could be a great way for us to actually avoid business disruption and strengthen our business concept for the future. So the business, or the CircleLab, begins with mapping your current business model. And if somebody thinks that it looks a little bit like something I've seen before, it's because it's It's a product or a model that is designed very close to the business model canvas, also designed in the Netherlands. And this is designed from some French guys. So you're starting up with putting in briefly an overview over how your current business model is functioning. So what is the value I'm going to create for our customers? What is the backbone of our business model? What is our vision? Who are our customers? How do we distribute our furniture to our customers, and so on. So very briefly, you get an overview. And at the same time, you then can step in and try to encourage yourself by stepping into a new scenario. And here is where we will see the connection with future thinking as well, because to actually push yourself into a new mindset, you need a scenario. So this one is a scenario, so even though this is made up, it could be relevant for actually this actor, because we know that many companies are getting more producer responsibilities, so they need to have track of the product even though they are at the customer side. So this is a scenario that they could move into and test circular economy models up against. Another scenario is that small startups are threatening your business model because, like I said earlier on, it's much easier to rent some furniture, and maybe it's also about that you can build your own furniture. So you can create some scenarios by, maybe there are scenarios that you know, or there are threats or opportunities that you need to actually step into thinking more circular. So, and this is what it looks like. It should be fun. This is a workshop, and this is also what we will experience afterwards upstairs. So, what I often get a question about is, how do we make money of it? When we go in and work with companies, we will like them to find a business case. So how can sustainability and how can circular thinking actually give you the one thing that you need to stay in the future and to rebuild and have competitive advantages? So going back to the 7 elements, and I will give you some business examples on some of the things that companies are currently doing with this new business model approaches. The examples, you will also find the examples in a mapping that was done earlier this year by a company, a research company in Sweden called the Sustainable Brand Insight. They are a partner of ours. They have made the first mapping on circular economy business model in the Nordic, and also talked to a lot of customers and consumers to see what do they actually know about circular economy, and what kind of models are they willing to buy. And it's possible to buy this report, and actually at the beginning of next year the report will be launched for a second time. So if you want an invitation, please tell me. So the first example is a well-known actor in the sustainability field, Interface. I'm sure that many of you have already heard about them. They are a pioneer with a long-standing record. But one of the examples is about the recovering and recycling model, where they, through I call it a shared value partnership with fishermen in the Philippines, they regenerate discharged fishing nets in the sea. And they use it to build and to deliver new carpet in the company. In the same frame, we also have this large company, which is a symposium of many companies in Denmark, who actually uses each other's waste as a resource in creating new businesses. So this business model is about creating production and consumption system in which everything that used to be considered as waste is provide for other uses. So, incorporating digital technology and sharing platforms. The whole sharing economy is part of the circular economy. And some of us think that that's one of the most refreshing and one of the most fast-moving business models as well. You know Airbnb, you know Nabobil, you know a lot. And why is that? That's because that 80% of the things that actually is typically stored in our homes, we only use for a month. So the sharing platform has a lot of opportunities, like this case, CarCharge, which is a Swedish company who works with property owners to increase the possibility of charging electric cars by distributing the property's existing electricity capacity. And we have another example. This is not about energy, but this is about human beings. This is about distributing resources, our spare time. Nyby is a Norwegian startup company. It was actually now rewarded by social entrepreneurs. It could be one of the social entrepreneurs of FELD organization this year. But resources are many things. It could also be human resources. And then we have a classic example, Philips, who have been a part of the circular and a very high-rated sustainable actor, was actually moved from actually transformed their whole business model. And we see that in a lot of companies that actually move into not only distributing or producing materials and products for their customer, but actually take the whole experience into not only selling lamps, but also selling the whole system. And at the same time, by owning that whole value chain, they can make more business and have a more transparent circular value chain, I thought I would say. Another experiment model is Viga. I don't know if they've been here to Norway, but it's a Danish example who rent out children's clothing. So instead of actually going out and buy baby clothing every week or month, you actually can get this on description. And my last example is how you can preserve and extend what is already made. So this is about the long-term perspective, how you actually can extend the life of a product. And we see that there's a lot of going on for now in the manufacturing, in the building industry, because we have massive challenges there. We are rebuilding like this building, and what do we actually do with it afterwards? So Caterpillar, which is a leading manufacturer and construction equipment deliverer, they took back about 154 million pounds of material from their customers, and today that counts for actually 80% of their income when it comes to sales. And the last example is I'm sure that most of you have, how many has an iPhone in the room? Small hands. How many of you have a Fairphone? You have a Fairphone, yeah. So this is also the new about it, that if you weren't a big consumer before, I think you had no choice in being an iPhone owner. So that is the top priority for being a big consumer, that you have a phone. So this is actually also about the future, that in the future we need to extend the lifetime of our products because of resource scarcity. So this makes it possible to actually build your own phone by moving some modular elements of your phone, so you can have the camera that you want, the size and the color that you want, and keep it for a much longer time. So how is I'm running on time? 1 minute? Okay, that's all for me. Then I want to introduce our next speaker, who will take us into the future thinking and design thinking. Paul Holte, who is a creative designer and in Eggs Design. Okay?
Microphone is working very good. Thank you for an excellent and enlightening presentation. It's a very important topic. I'm going to talk about future thinking. And I think that when you learn about future thinking, in general, you just get better at predicting the future. Because when I was asked a few weeks ago to present future thinking in only 20 minutes, I already knew I was in trouble. So future thinking relates very closely to design thinking. And my guess is that most of you in this room is very familiar with design thinking. And it's certainly in the core of most of what we do in Eggs Design. Design thinking is primarily about understanding human beings and understanding their needs so that we can accommodate for them as part of a design or innovation process. But we also need to understand technology and business goals and unite those so that whatever we're innovating is in the cross-section between all of these things. As part of future thinking, I would propose that there is a missing piece in design thinking. And I think that future thinking is about exploring what happens if we try to unite the future perspectives along with these other elements of design thinking. I'm going to let you take your pictures, and then I will continue. So here's the general idea. The idea is that if you're a business developer or you're standing in front of some kind of opportunity, some kind of innovation opportunity, the possibilities that are the most obvious ones are the ones that relate to the market as you see it today, right? So you can get a little bit blinded by it because you know about some trends that are going on right now, you know about the pains you're feeling right now. But the idea with future thinking is to try to get up from that perspective a little bit, create something that is called a future foundation. So the idea is that if you do that, if you apply some future insights, try to look a little bit further into the future, you might see some other opportunities that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And once you see those futures, you can start building value propositions or future propositions for those alternative future possibilities. So you're broadening the scope a little bit. And the idea then is that maybe there's some more interesting value propositions in an alternative future than the most obvious one that you have in front of you. And if you do that, even if it's a little bit into the future, that will enable you to build a roadmap towards one of those other futures. You won't be able to just jump there because you can't turn time 5 or 10 years into the future immediately, but you can start thinking about how you will build your roadmap towards that future that you want as a company. But to do that, you have to work with future insights. So how do you build a future foundation? To talk about that, I would actually like to focus on a major pitfall that I think is very easy to walk into when you're talking about the future. Because the future is a very attractive subject. It's a very entertaining subject. A lot of people like to talk about it. We like to play with fear. You know, disruption is happening, sustainability, the world will collapse. There are so many kind of scenarios that attract all these conversations about the future and all the trends. So I'd like to borrow a term from this brilliant guy called Ira Glass. He has created a term that is called a modern jackass. A modern jackass is a person that talks expertly about something that he or she actually knows nothing about. And this is probably a more important definition to keep in mind, or a phenomenon, because in these ages of information flow, we all know a lot about, different things. It all comes very available. It's all very available to us. So he says, and I love this, having no information is pure, But we all have a little bit of information, don't we? And the problem is having a little bit of information because it's very hard for people not to take that tiny pigment and then paint the vast canvas of the entire world. Do we have any modern jackasses here in the audience today? Because at least I feel hit by this. I love to talk expertly about things I don't know anything about. Perhaps that's what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to try to systemize a little bit. So, a modern jackass, when you're in a social setting, like around a dinner table, is, best case scenario is an entertaining person. It's good at telling stories. But a modern jackass in a business setting can be dangerous. Because if you base your future on someone that appears to be more of an expert than he really is, you might make the wrong decisions. So it's important to be a little bit more organized when working with these things. And I think, this is one of my main messages, is that future insights are good, but they have to be organized. You have to put them in a system somehow to understand the full picture as good as possible. And if you combine that with design methodology, that's when you get future thinking. This is at least one kind of definition of future thinking. Now, I'm a designer, so of course, anything combined with design methodology is going to be super valuable, but this is one way of looking at it. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about what I mean with organized future insights, because we have worked quite a bit with a company called Copenhagen Institute of Futures Studies. And they are an authority, one of not so many authorities on studying the future and really trying to understand the future. They're a group of people, a non-for-profit organization, that is dedicating their lives at harvesting trends and making sense of them somehow. And a simplified version of understanding how they're working is this. Because the world of trends is quite organic. So they would look at what they call micro-trends. And an example of a micro-trend is a Fitbit. Anyone here has a Fitbit? There are a few people with Fitbits. Now, a Fitbit will not very likely last for all that long. It's counting our steps and when we walk in stairs and so forth. And it's also a watch, but it's not really a very good watch. In a few years, I predict that there aren't going to be many Fitbits exactly. However, this is part of something that we could call a sub-trend, which is a cluster of smaller trends. And a sub-trend where the Fitbit fits in is this one, do-it-yourself health. So this is a sub-trend that we could predict will last much longer. So do-it-yourself means that you're monitoring your own health, and you might even diagnose yourself or treat yourself. It's a trend that is likely to last for a longer period of time. Now, this is called a sub-trend, according to Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies. And they're saying that if you take these sub-trends and you collect those that relate to one another, then you get this thing, this phenomenon that they call a megatrend. One example of a megatrend is focus on health, where the do-it-yourself health and the Fitbit fits in. And what they're saying, they're defining a megatrend, that a megatrend is something that has lasted for at least 10 years, and it will continue lasting for at least another 10 years. So for the next 10 years, we're going to focus more and more on health. This is useful knowledge for anyone working with innovation. And I like this. So they're saying that, so a consequence of this, a consequence of knowing that this is going to last for another 10 years, is that you can't hide. You can't hide from megatrends. If you're working with innovation, there's no point in not taking into consideration these trends because they're going to happen. You can't find a future scenario where these trends are irrelevant. So, CIFs have defined 13 megatrends, and I think that each of these 13 megatrends could be a full-day seminar here in Doga. We could set aside 2 weeks and do a megatrend series of presentations, maybe. I'm going to give you some flash examples of what they contain. All right? Gonna let you take the pictures. All right, so I have, the first example is tech advances. It's a very obvious one. I think that a lot of people are studying technology trends in particular, but this is only one of the 13 ones. And it contains, I mean, tech advances isn't so interesting as a word in itself, but it contains a big number of sub-trends that we could use to fuel our innovation processes. So one example, a very obvious example, is artificial intelligence and machine learning. You can look at it as a natural step of the evolution of man. Now, this has been just some science fiction things until today when this is really getting mature. A lot of people are working with this and it's raising concerns. Elon Musk is saying that maybe this is what is going to cause World War III. It has a big impact on us, and it most likely has an impact on a lot of innovation work that is going on out there too. So that's one example of a sub-trend within tech advances. And another example is augmented reality, which right now is being used mostly for simulation and learning processes. But as these are getting smaller and cheaper, they're going to be used in many other industries as well. It's just an example. I'm just flashing these, not talking much about it. Another sub-trend here is that internet is becoming available in the entire world for free. This has a big consequence for a lot of players out there. For example, the maritime industry, all of a sudden, all the ships can be connected with no cost. This has not been possible before. So it has a lot of implications, so to speak. And you could go on like this for a while to just list all the sub-trends that are part of this tech advances thing. What we have done is started to collect these in little cards that we can print out and use almost as post-it formats in these innovation processes. That is quite useful. Another example of a megatrend, I just want to chip in on it. I don't think I can skip this megatrend today, but it's just one out of the 13 megatrends. Say that sustainability, it's going to be more and more focus on sustainability for the next 10 years. So this that we see is the beginning of a trend now, or it's not really a beginning as it's been going on since the 70s, but it will continue to escalate. It's going to be more and more important. And it has implications on regulations and finance. It has implications for industries and energy consumption. And it has implications on brands. It's going to be important for every company to at least not come across as someone who doesn't care about sustainability. And one example of a sub-trend here is the circular economy. And it's interesting, like when you're talking about how people feel that this is almost like a threat to their business model as it is today. But when you look at the money, I'm so happy that it's not only called circular design. It's called circular economy, so that those people that have money understand that there's something in it for them. And I like this number that circular economy can generate net economic benefit of 1.8 trillion euros by 2030. That's a crazy big number. Who doesn't want to be part of that, right? It's a good piece of information. This has consequences. Sustainability has consequences on consumers as well. Is that as long as we get rid of poverty and we can stimulate that people are more educated in the future, consumers will also care more about sustainability, which is doing something to our brands and maybe the purpose formulations of our companies and so forth. This is an important little piece of information as well, especially if you're working with anything for the consumer market. So these are just little flashes of sub-trends that together kind of build up this megatrend called sustainability. And there are, as I said, 13 of these megatrends. Right now we have collected more than 200 of these sub-trends that exist in these little blue card formats. And they're like fuel on this creativity processes, right? You can toss them into any creative process, and you immediately start getting ideas that you maybe wouldn't get otherwise. It's quite interesting. So the design methodology. I think there are very many different ways of working with these megatrends and subtrends. And I've made like this simplified approach as an example of a way to work with these. Like a 1, 2, 3, do-it-yourself kind of approach. So step number 1, First, you create a future foundation. So you have to pick a theme, and the theme should be quite specific. It could be, for example, the future of banking for children, or it could be the future of breakfast seminars. In any case, it could be the future of anything, but it could be quite specific because it's easier to get specific outcomes if you know a little bit what you're looking for. And then you pick the trends and sub-trends that you believe are relevant for this topic, and you start working on those sub-trends, evaluating the impact of those trends to your topic. Once you do that, you can start building these future scenarios that you talked about. What I like to do is to build one future scenario, which is the most likely scenario, and then I start building some alternative scenarios, which are more speculative. Because some of the trends might have a very big impact on your industry, but they contain some uncertainties for what kind of impact they will have. So then you can start building some speculative futures, because some of the most interesting ideas might live there in one of those less obvious kind of futures. Once you have those, you can start building value propositions within those scenarios. So these scenarios, in a way, represents the mountains that I showed you in the beginning, and here we're talking about how can you describe. This would be more like a standard design process, but not based on today. It's based on these future scenarios instead. So this methodology is very, very scalable, or at least we've tried it in very many different formats. So I'm going to show you an example that we did along with Kongsberg, which is a more strategic project. It lasted for 6 months. But I'm also going to show you a couple of pictures from a process that we did for Itaú, which is the biggest bank on the southern hemisphere. It's pretty cool. So we went to Brazil, and this is how you look when you're charged with, when you have your role full of megatrends. It's a lot of fun to work with megatrends, and maybe you feel a little bit, confident when you're charged with the future, So this workshop started with me talking about megatrends and subtrends, and then all the people of the Itaú Bank that would work there in the UX department of Itaú, they would start playing with these subtrends and picking those that were relevant for the different future topics for this bank. And they would build scenarios from this, and we would make these plots. I think much in common maybe with the plots that you have, except there would be other categories. And each of the teams then would present to one another the value propositions that they created in this workshop. And of course, we had to find a winner, and the winner would get a deck with megatrend cards, and they were super happy. And I think all of this lasted for 4 or 5 hours only. So you don't really get like a very solid fundament for the future of this bank, but you do get an early understanding of how it is to work with the future, and maybe you're fueled with some new perspectives that is going to make a difference in the longer run for this bank. So I think it's worthwhile, even though you're just scratching the surface, I think it's worthwhile doing those kind of workshops, at least as a warm-up, as a first introduction to future thinking. Another example that we did is for Kongsberg, where we worked in a more thorough way. So Kongsberg, their department in Horten, which is working with Merchant Marine, they were going to redesign their automation control systems for their ships. It's a very technical kind of project. We spent some more time then into picking the subtrends that were relevant for them. And here you can see this diagram where we sorted all the subtrends for this particular theme, like the future of merchant marine automation. It's very specific. And we sorted them along the axis of the degree of certainty and degree of impact. So, of course, there's no point on making a future of marine automation that doesn't have these trends as part of them. There's just no point on doing it. Once you've discovered them, you realize that we have to use them. So that's what we did. We took those and we started building these future scenarios, just as we did in the workshop with Itaú. But we could start making a little bit more effort into really understanding these scenarios. We would do SWOT analysis, for example, for each of these scenarios, build a deeper understanding, include more people from Kongsberg to really use their expertise into getting more aware of what these scenarios would contain. Having those scenarios, we could start an ideation process, which can be completely chaotic, like all ideas deserve to be there. But when you want to evaluate the ideas, we need to refine them a little bit. So we would pick some of the most interesting ideas, and we would start making some simple illustrations and describe them in a very, very short way, so that it's possible to communicate with other people in Kongsberg and anchor the best ideas as you evaluate them. So this, for example, is an idea related to how you can improve the user interface for the operator in the machine room. Others were more related to the flexibility of the system and how you can kind of scale the system over time. Some would be more experimental in terms of how can you really utilize the new technology for the crew on board the ships. What if we apply a drone and you automate some of the work that is very demanding manual work today? And what if we include other stakeholders, like the ship owner? What if they could see more stuff on the ship over time and so forth? And all of these ideas were kind of fueled by all the future perspectives that we had. Now, by clustering all of these ideas, we could start building future value propositions. So for Kongsberg, we made 3 main value propositions, and we gave them titles. And because this was going to be an important strategic decision-making platform for Kongsberg, they invested in actually making a little movie for each of these, a little animated movie for each of these value propositions that they could use internally in their organizations to get as many stakeholders as possible to be invested in these possible futures. So the one in the middle there, I'm going to play a minute of that, and I just want you to notice that like when you've seen future videos, very often they're kind of science fiction-ish, you know. They would throw in a little hologram in there because it's cool. But there's no hologram in this one because it's cool, because holograms, in very many of its applications, it doesn't have a concrete value to anyone, right? It's just there because it's cool. Whereas here, we actually really look for value propositions. So try to look for where we've thrown in our future insights and what kind of value propositions come out of it.
Kongsberg provides ship owners with a proactive service and a far broader awareness to increase overall performance. By 2020, we expect to have high-speed broadband links that will open up ever-increasing opportunities. Environmental regulations and fleet comparisons are also expected to influence ship operations even further. All ships that are equipped with Kongsberg Merchant Marine systems are connected, each sending data onshore for reporting and optimizing performance. Kongsberg Merchant Marine acts as a full-service provider for ship owners, an extension of Fleet at Web. With an impressive portfolio of over 14,000 ships, Kongsberg Merchant Marine has a vast amount of experience and expertise in benchmarking systems. Ship owners can receive specialist advice along with data and notifications regarding proactive decision-making. This will lead to a higher standard of performance, less maintenance costs, reduced downtime, fleet monitoring, engine performance, and proactive alarm optimization.
All right, so that's an example of the value propositions that you can build based on these future insights. And I think that it's still early days in terms of finding out how to work with future insights in the best possible way. But at least these methods that we're applying now in the projects that we have going on for our clients, we're doing this more and more. And we're already seeing some quite strong effects, I think. And just to summarize, why should you future think, making a verb out of it? You should do it to trigger pioneering ideas and visions. It's actually as like fuel to the creativity, as I said. You should do it to spot future risks as well, because there could be things that would change the way you do things today. You should do it to make a strong foundation for strategic decisions, as we did for Kongsberg, so that people can make decisions not based on gut feeling, but based on being more informed about what they think the future will actually bring. And to accelerate and to unite the organization towards a common goal. And those are 4 pretty good reasons to future think, in my opinion. That's all I had. I'm sorry, I'll go back. Thanks. Right, then I will toss the ball to you.
Thank you very much. Må jeg bare avslutte? Well, thank you very much, Paul, for this brilliant presentation, and thanks for calling me a modern jackass. I just realized that sometimes I can be a bit of that, and now that I'm conscious of it, I can probably do something about it as well. So my name is Michael Wolfstern. I'm working with Biomimicry Norway. We're providing consulting services in sustainable innovation, doing a bit of education, and like Kia Klaveness, I'm a certified consultant with Circulab. So circular economy, future thinking, gives you circular futures. This whole concept started a little less than a year ago when Marianne Reimer from Orec and myself were invited at X Designs for one of their first Fridays events, where the theme was circular economy. And this was a really great event. We got designers really engaged in this theme. It was really pleasant to see because really, like Knut said at the beginning of the session, 80% of the impacts of a product are determined at the design stage. So we cannot make this a sustainable world if we're not getting the designers on board, obviously. So one issue we often see is that companies are not very good at breaking up their silos, right? You can have the people working on strategy and CSR on one side and the designers on the other side, and they're not necessarily communicating so well together. And this is really a shame. So even though design has become more and more acknowledged as a strategic discipline, which is great, there's still some lack of communication there. So what we thought is like, okay, X Design is really good at design, obviously. Pure CSR is really good at CSR and strategy. And at Biomimicry Norway, we have a bit of a foot in each field. And so, okay, how about we try and combine those approaches, those tools that we have, to see if we can make a bit of a better integrated approach to sustainable design. And that's how it all started. So we're lucky enough to have a company that X Design is working with. It's called Aqua Group. They're a leading technology and service partner to the aquaculture industry worldwide. And they've accepted to go through a bit of an experiment with this new framework. And this month, they run through a workshop together with X Designs on their future thinking approach. And from that workshop, they extracted a number of megatrends and subtrends, like Paul explained. And those things are really powerful, right? Because you get a lot of insights. Once you know or have an idea of how your future might look like, and like you can see, or like Paul said, some futures are more probable than others. But once you have that, you get a lot of insights. So, sorry, so there's insights that you get on the technology side, but also insights on the business model side. Like Paul said, you come up with value propositions. That's really important. So that goes straight onto your business model. And we decided to go along with one of the megatrends that Aqua Group chose, and that was immaterialization. And one of the sub-trends of that is shifting from selling products to selling services. And of course, when you have those trends, you look at this future and it looks a bit threatening. And that's, of course, if you're not doing anything. But when you choose to innovate, then it becomes full of opportunities. So putting that into the circular framework also helps you to find those new opportunities. You're not going to design the same way when you design a product that's meant to be sold than when you're designing a product that's meant to be only rented out, right? Of course, your company needs to make a lot of money to survive, and you need to find what opportunities lie therein. And you cannot have a product that doesn't last too long if you're only renting it out. You want to extend that life, obviously. And it has a lot of more opportunities. Knut showed the diagram with the circular loops earlier, and all those loops have to be taken into account in your strategy as well, in your design, so that you get the most value out of this. So what we did is that we took the megatrends and subtrends and put this into a scenario that we're going to use in this Circulab workshop that 20 of you have chosen to be part of, and thank you for that. So right after this presentation, we'll move upstairs and run this workshop. So we're using Aqua Group's business model, the current one, with the current value proposition, and we'll deal out some cards that will inspire the players to come up with new ideas on how to make their business model more circular, right? So this is the idea behind the approach, and the scenario that we have is following. So by 2025, fish farming will be based on a service. Aqua Group has already embarked on that journey, offering rental of complete systems as well as single products with service included. So the question is, how can Aqua Group take this further and ensure a circular business model that extends the life cycle of their products? What do you propose? And so the idea is that with our cards, the participants will be able to generate a bunch of new ideas to make the business model more circular. We're really looking forward to see what they come up with. And I just want to conclude on, by combining these opportunities, the circular opportunities, together with the future thinking, we actually make the business model and the design go better hand in hand, and that hopefully also will create a better dialogue between disciplines that are not communicating so well together right now. So I'd like to, I think we have some time, or okay, we're a bit short on time, so maybe not so much questions, but you can find us in the mingling room, or you can contact us here, our email addresses. Thank you very much. Just a second, so the 20 people who signed up for the workshop, please move up to the mezzanine, and we'll keep going with the event from